They call him Seatin, the man of legends.
Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Seatin here. Hello and welcome to the 3.0 Warlord PvP guide. Today we're going to be having a chat about Warlord PvP and how it is in 3.0, what has changed, all that exciting stuff. So, first things first, let's start off with the spec itself. Now, the point allocation is fairly straightforward to most people and doesn't really need changing all that much. The simple allocation for the points themselves are 61 in Warlord, 2 in Tempest. This will give you Shock Pulse and also Skyfall, which are quite important for sort of closing those gaps. I mean, if you're looking for something along the free-to-play lines, you'll probably want to... I'm not too sure what you should fill this void with. Like Tempest is pretty damn important to being a warrior at endgame, as much as that really does suck. Probably something like Paragon, so you get an extra Bulls Rush. Even though, to be honest guys, literally you don't really want to play this without Tempest. You might as well just go with the 61 Paragon build. But regardless of which, let's focus on the suggested and ideal point allocation, which is this one. So you got 2 in Tempest and you have 13 in Paragon. Now you can actually sacrifice roughly 2% attack power and 2% weapon contribution to get Elude, so you can take points out of Paragon and put them in Amped and then also Elude in Tempest. This will grant you an additional break free and jump back, so it's kind of like a totally optional thing which will make the soul more mobile. However, to be honest guys, I don't think it needs much more mobility. I mean, it is just king. It's still like a really good spec for moving around and getting away from stuff. Plus you already have a jump back from defensive maneuvers, so you know you don't need Elude. However, with Elude, you know, you get a double jump back, so that can be like just a mega disengage. So you know, some people prefer it. It isn't a huge DPS sacrifice, so you know, it's something optional. In regards to the masteries, there is quite a bit that can be changed. However, I like to go with level 61, fairly straightforward there, is Resonating Strikes. This basically means every time you crit, you're going to get a 4% absorption shield, which is just awesome. Level 62, I like Steadfast Soul. Basically, it means whenever you get crit from another player, the next single target heal you receive within 5 seconds has a 100% chance to critically hit. So this means if you maybe have like somebody healing you, then their next big heal could, you know, guaranteed to be an insta-crit, and this can happen once every 10 seconds. So I would say that is pretty damn valuable. So yeah, I like that one, and the others are just kind of... They're just a bit pathetic and don't really provide anything. So yeah, definitely Steadfast Soul is the way to go there. Now at level 63, you do have a bit of a choice to make. So any one of Runner's Training, Energy Reserves, or Gladiator Combat Training will do just perfectly. I like Energy Reserves just due to the fact sometimes in long fights or maybe up against Dominators, I do go so I like to, you know, I like to be building that extra energy every kind of 3 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds, so that's pretty damn cool. You can also either get Runner's Training, which is just a base 10% movement speed increase, or you can get Gladiator Combat Training, which is basically a stacking movement speed increase that stacks 3 times 4% per stack, so 12%. So overall that's slightly faster, but you don't get it instantly. You know, you have to attack to actually get the benefit. You know, it's debatable which one would be best, to be honest. But personally, I just like sticking with Energy Reserves. Maybe if I'm fighting a caster, or if I know I'm going against kind of a lot of ranged DPS and I want to get them down quickly, I'll probably opt for sort of Gladiator Combat Training. Level 64, it's no debate here at all. You definitely want to go for the Liberate Strikes, because building Rage is just so damn OP in PvP at the moment. It's just ridiculously awesome. It explodes for about anywhere between about 3 to sort of 5k every kind of like every few seconds, essentially, with kind of the off global cooldown abilities that you have proccing it. So yeah, that's pretty damn cool. And then level 65, now you have 2 that I suggest alternating depending on your team composition. You have Power Variation, and also power manipulation. Now, power variation should essentially be used as a heal, so what it can do if channeled on yourself is it restores 50% of your health each second for each second over 3 seconds, and you can move while channeling this. So basically you can, just quickly get out the heat of action, heal yourself back up, and that's what power variation is really good for. However, if you want more burst DPS, then power manipulation is definitely the way to go. And for both of these abilities, you'll always want to cast them on yourself, so it's very important that you make cast at self macros, which is kind of the next thing we're going to go on to talk about. So for this build, there are kind of 4 essential macros to use. I have one for my power variation to cast that at myself, one for my power manipulation to cast that at myself. As you can see, I have both of those on my bar. I kind of swap them round, just in the position that they are on number 8, depending on which one I'm using. Generally speaking, I will stick with power variation just due to the fact it gives me a lot of solo survivability. I really do like that mastery and having that kind of ability to heal myself up. And I don't really have too many problems with damage at the moment, but if I did want even more damage, even more burst, power manipulation would be the way to go for me. So you want 2 cast at self macros, you can copy and paste them right out the description of this video. Then you have your builder macro. This basically just has all your builder stuff in one. There is quite a lot in this macro. Your King of the Hill Decisive Strikes, a Quick Death, Rising Waterfall, and Empowering Strike, which are all on the global cooldown. And then you have Backhand, Arterial Strike, which are off the global cooldown. And then finally you have Shock Pulse, which will essentially be used whenever you're not in range of the target, and will mean that you can continue to build combo points and put stacks of building rage on your enemy. So that's pretty damn important. And then for the finisher macro, so this is very easy finisher macro. Show Killing Field, cast Killing Field, Breaking Blow, Skyfall. So basically Killing Field is kind of like your AoE hardest hitting finisher, attacks everything around it. And then you have Breaking Blow, your single target smash from melee, and then Skyfall, which is kind of like your ranged finisher. I do, however, also put Skyfall on a separate button, just due to the fact, like, if I'm at ranged and I hit my finisher macro and it's going to proc Killing Field, then, it's Killing Field's not doing anything and it's been wasted. So I like to, keep it on a separate key there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the macros. The macros are very straightforward. You can just copy and paste them from the description of this video. Now, in regards to the buffs, there are kind of 4 buffs you want to have up. You want Deadly Posture up, Ready Posture, Enhanced Conductivity, and the Way of the River. Those your 4 buffs. There's also going to be an additional buff from Power. Actually, you can put Focus of the Body if you don't have any support doing that. But there is one buff you do not want to use, and that is Turn the Blade. Turn the Blade will essentially result in quite a hefty overall damage and burst loss, considering like Warlord mainly relies on using big hard-hitting abilities. They're on a cooldown, and making the global cooldown lower at the cost of 33% of your damage just results in a really big DPS loss for this spec. So yeah, do not use Turn the Blade. Do not use it. That is a no to Turn the Blade. And if you see any Warlords using Turn the Blade, tell them off, because they're not doing it right. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the buffs, macros, spec, everything. Now let's go on to how do you actually play the build. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice if you have a look through the kind of Warlord abilities is that you do have a lot to work with when it comes to Warlords. You have a lot of utility, you have a lot of healing, you have just odd bits and bobs here and there. Movement speed increased, Surgeon's Orders, which pulls the enemy. So one of the things I suggest doing before you kind of get started in Warlord is just read all of the abilities and read what they do. I know it sounds really stupid, but it's just something that I definitely suggest that you do. Or, you just it's just not going to turn out well for you. It's always nice to know your sort of kind of class and know that you're playing it to kind of its full capability. Actually, one of the macros that I did miss out sort of on the macro section is I've also macroed clear the breach and into the breach together, just for kind of like a lazy one button charge macro. I will also add that into kind of the description of this video so you can copy and paste it. So that's pretty much it there. Anyway, onto the core concepts of sort of playing a Warlord in PvP. Now, what I like to do, let's just refresh that, is I initially kind of like to stay at the back. I like to cast Shock Pulse just until I get both of my surges up. So you want to get 2 surges up, Tactical Surge and Battle Surge. Once I have both of those up, I will charge in with a Clear the Breach, and then I will basically start hitting my Builder macro. I'll get Killing Field up, and as soon as I've got Killing Field up, I'll pop a cooldown called Battlefield Experience, which will basically mean that for the next 15 seconds, both my King of the Hill and Killing Field do not have a cooldown at all. So during this period, I can just absolutely go to town on the DPS, just big numbers absolutely everywhere, and yeah, as you can see on the dummy, it's quite the nice bit of burst. So you go to town, just absolutely spam the crap out of that builder macro. Now, it really kind of is as simple as kind of builder and finisher macro, while all ensuring both your surges are kept up. But there are kind of elements that you can add in now to make it slightly more kind of complex and increase the skill cap on it. Now, one of the things is Piercing Thrust got a bit of an overhaul, so this is a separate damaging ability that you have, which basically deals a large amount of weapon damage, but the damage is doubled if you use it like 6 seconds after a finisher. So during that block of sort of building 3 attack points, if you want to incorporate a Piercing Thrust or Wave of Steel into kind of the rotation. Wave of Steel is basically like an AoE Piercing Thrust, so if you want to use that just to cleave down a couple of targets, you can. So basically, you know, as you can see, I'm just throwing out a couple of Piercing Thrusts in the middle here. Also, every time you use a King of the Hill, for the next 15 seconds, you get a guaranteed critical hit on your next Piercing Thrust. So that is certainly something to, you know, it's certainly something to keep in mind just for you know, the future and when you're kind of like mashing away at this. But again, that is something that you can do once you're a bit more comfortable with the build and how stuff is playing out. So yeah, just adding Piercing Thrust in does add a bit more complexity to the already kind of simple rotation of just, you know, spamming your builder and finisher while ensuring your surges are kept up. Now, let's just go on to talk about the tools that you do have as a Warlord, just to kind of like remind you. So you have Forced March. I'll actually go through my bars. I think this will be the easiest way, just to give you an idea of, you know, how I run the spec, etc. So on my number 1 key, I have Forced March, which is basically the movement speed increase. It's 50% more movement for 15 seconds, and that's got no global cooldown, and has a 1-minute cooldown. Number 2, I've got my Builder macro, already covered. Number 3, I have my Finisher macro, already covered. Number 4, I have Skyfall, which is my ranged finisher, for when I'm basically out of melee range and want to ensure that a ranged finisher gets fired off on my target. Number 5, I have No Permission to Die. Basically, this is a buff that I put on myself, and if I'm killed within the 10 seconds of applying the buff while it's active, I get healed for 50% of my maximum health. Now in PvP, this kind of equates to about 25% of your health, so really it isn't all that much, but it can save you from a killing blow, and that's what really matters. Number 6, I have my single target interrupt, which is called Neck Punch. Number 7, I have Battlefield Experience, which is my big cooldown, which kind of, you know, resets King of the Hill's cooldown and causes it to have no cooldown for 15 seconds, so that is pretty damn awesome. Number 8, I've got Power Variation, which is the heal on myself. It should always be channeled on myself with the Cast Itself macro, so, you know, I don't view it as a damaging ability, because as a damaging ability, it is weak as shit, and you might as well use Power Manipulation if you want to go that way. Number 9, I have Wave of Steel, just in case, you know, I ever need to cleave targets or anything, you know, that is always an option. On 0, I actually have my mount. I like having my mount keybound just so I can quickly mount up and get away from the heat of the action when needed. On sort of the minus key, I have Piercing Thrust just to kind of like jab out whenever, you know, I'm sort of building combo points and I have a proc from King of the Hill. On my equals key, I have Defensive Maneuver, which is my leap back. On F1, I have Tactical Surge, which is one of my 2 essential surges that I want to keep up, due to the fact that these increase damage done by a considerable amount. F2, I have Battle Surge, which increases my attack power and weapon contribution. Again, very, very good. Number F3, I have Wrist Strike, which is my debilitate that I want to use on the target. Basically, this is brilliant for interrupting, well, acting as a secondary interrupt for kind of like any class, but it's especially effective against pyromancers and inquisitors. So like if, for example, I'm fighting a pyromancer, I can get an interrupt on their flame volley with neck punch, and then their fusillade with a wrist strike. So that is very, very valuable. I then have the Eye of the Storm, which snares the enemy for 10 seconds. It's off global cooldown, so this is brilliant for kind of like snaring people who are trying to run away from me and trying to kite me. On kind of one of my mouse keys, I have Break Free, which, you know, you should always have on a very easy and accessible key and never in a macro. On my kind of like, the key to the left of one, I have Surgeon's Orders, which basically will pull the target towards me. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate on a dummy. I then have General Orders on the next key as well, which pulls up to 5 enemies. It's basically Surgeon's Orders, but for 5 nearby enemies of that target. So it's kind of like an AoE one, which is especially useful in like maybe Port Sion, or especially Conquest when that comes out, for gripping large groups of enemies towards me. I have Force March again on my bar. I do not know why. Then I have Battlefield Medic, which heals, is basically an off global cooldown heal. However, it's not very good, due to the fact that it does sap your energy quite quick, and it doesn't really heal you for anything in the warfront. You're probably going to see like a 2 to 2.5k heal at most, which isn't really that good for the kind of the power invested in it. If you start using Battlefield Medic, you are going to run out of energy very, very fast. So I always do suggest just keeping it on a separate key and use it for those moments where maybe you've finished fighting an Inquisitor or maybe an Assassin, you're fully dotted up, and you just maybe want to like, oh damn, what can I use to heal myself? Boom, Battlefield Medic. But that's about it. And then I have Power Manipulation, just so I can quickly swap that with Power Variation, and if, you know, I decide to change out the mastery. So that's it, guys. Not too many keybinds. If you want to see Warlord in action, I released a Warrior PvP video a few days ago detailing kind of this spec and how I play it, so feel free to check that out. Apart from that, take care, have an absolutely great day. If you do have any questions about Warlord or Warlord PvP, feel free to leave them in the comments of the video, and I will do my best to answer and address all of them that I can. Apart from that, guys, once again, take care, have an absolutely great day. Yeah, have a good one.